As a passionate angler and lover of nature, Ben is committed to supporting the conservation of biodiversity and the natural beauty of our region. Thanks for joining us, Ben. So we're all here today to talk about and introduce the Green River Valley. This is an area that is right outside the Mount St. Helens National Volcanic Monument. And it's just, I've been there multiple times, and it's just, it captivates you. You can, on the Goat Mountain Trail, which gets to the top of this area, you can see panoramic views of the whole Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. It's just stunning. And the Green River is a river that runs right at the base of that Goat Mountain Trail, and it is just an amazing place. And we're going to talk about why this place is so amazing, why it's so captivating, and why it's so important, and how many different people use it and appreciate it, and then why we need to protect it from an impending open pit mine in this space. You'll hear from each of our different panelists from the organizations they represent about why this place is so amazing. And to kick things off, I think that we are going to watch two videos here, one from Trans-Cascadia called Common Grounds, and then a second one from CFC. So let's kick things off with the Common Ground to set the stage. It looks like we might be having a little trouble with the sound here, so please bear with us. Well, unfortunately, we don't have any audio for this movie, and I know it's a good one because I've seen it before. It sounds like it might be very faint in the background, but
you know as well as I, the budget.
There we go.
The road access has been closed for 3 years. And when we finally got back in here to see what had to be done, we were just appalled. If we want to keep these trails open, we're going to have to work at it.
We are here with Trans-Cascadia. We came out to build trail, and we succeeded in doing that.
We found a trail here that with no branches in the way, you can go real fast on it. So we're just making sure that the line of sight, as you can see, is hella clear.
Into the mist.
And so we should see speeds around 65 to 100 here.
I'm known as Doc Wasilius. I'm one of the packers. I wasn't born on a horse, but I've got a picture of myself coming home from the hospital on one. It doesn't take much to plug up a trail system. Where the old growth is, you know, you got these 8, 9, 10 foot diameter trees that come down. That takes some work to get them off the trail. If we don't do it, it will not get done.
You guys behave. Oh,
My particular organization tends to be getting a little gray, a little thin on top. It's kind of interesting to get together with some young bucks and young ladies that are just more than happy to come out and help. You know, different user groups working together, it's like anything else, you know. We all hate our neighbors until we get to know them. we start finding out that we have more in common than we have with our petty little territorial disputes. If we can work together and they can put up with a bunch of old cowboys, they can learn a lot and we can accomplish a lot and we can keep these trails open.
I think we're pretty close to being ready for the Trans-Cascadia race now. We did a lot of work to get ready for it. The race paid for this work, and it's a great symbiosis, right? Get to build trail and get fed and taken care of, and then those guys get to ride rad trail. They are going to have such a good time.
Fly fishing is like a prayer in motion. The places you're at bring out a wild piece of the world that when you connect with it can just really be magical. This is a unique place. The Goat Mountain Trail offers some of the most spectacular views into the St. Helens crater.
There's a horse camp here and there is hunting. Right now it's grouse season and later it will be elk season.
These coastal streams are home to 14-pound, 16-pound steelhead. The one thing it takes for them to survive is real clear fresh water flowing over healthy spawning habitats. That's what the green provides.
The Green River runs into the Toutle River, which runs into the Cowlitz River. I drink the water from the Cowlitz River, and I do not want to have acid mine drainage in my drinking water.
The watershed as a whole would all be compromised if there were mine exploration or development here.
The last company that proposed a mine here said that for this to be economically viable, that they would have a 4,000 to 6,000 acre pit mine. Half of the mountain would be gone.
Million cubic meters of wastewater poured into local waterways when the earthen dam surrounding a tailings pond collapsed.
A wave of small earthquakes shaking Mount St. Helens in recent days, and experts say more than 100 quakes have actually occurred underneath the Washington State volcano over the last several weeks.
And each one of those little earthquakes would be working at destabilizing a tailings pond. And of course, the pit mine itself.
A mine disaster in this environment would be horrific.
These lands were purchased by the Forest Service with money from the Land and Water Conservation Fund, a fund designed for conservation and recreation. A mine would completely destroy those values. Once a company has proven commercial viability through exploration, the current mining laws make it very difficult to prevent mine development. Right now is the best time to get engaged because this is the best chance we have to stop them.
Awesome. Well, as you can see from watching these videos, there are so many people, hunters, anglers, hikers, bikers, conservationists that love this beautiful area and all collaborate and work together to appreciate everything that it has to offer and now are working together to protect it. And as I introduced these folks earlier, Native Fish Society, Trans-Cascadia, and CFC are all here to talk about what this place is, what it means to them as individuals and as groups, and what we can do to protect it. So thanks all for being here. If you guys could jump off mute and let's start chatting about this place. So first question for y'all, just to set the stage. What makes the Green River Valley so special to you and your organization? And how did mine impact that? Let's kick things off with Lucy.
Yeah, thanks for that, Molly. I mean, as everybody's just seen, it's a extremely spectacular place. It's right next to Mount St. Helens in the heart of the Cascades of the Green River Valley. Insanely beautiful panoramas. One of my personal favorite portions of this area is the Goat Mountain Trail itself. You climb up this steep trail, you hit old growth forest, you cap the top of a little bit of a climb, and you start seeing Mount Rainier off to the right. You climb a little further up to the top and you're surrounded by Mount St. Helens, Mount Adams, Mount Rainier, the Green River Valley. It's a truly spectacular place. And that's just my personal love for this place. Our members in our organization have a lot of special memories and uses for this incredible place. We have the Green River, which I won't talk too much about because we have Native Fish Society here, but it is a gene bank for steelhead. It's also spawning habitat for coho and Chinook salmon, all endangered species. I spoke about that old growth, why that's super special. A lot of the old growth in this area was obliterated with that Mount St. Helens blast, but the Green River Valley, this specific place, has some of the last remaining old growth that survived the Mount St. Helens blast. So you had those old growth dependent species because of that. You had the northern spotted owl, you have flying squirrels, just super rare wildlife that is dwindling and is very special to this place. You then have the recreation opportunities that Nick will talk about as well, but our members just adore this place for the wildlife, the ecology, dependent on drinking water and the recreation opportunities that there is here.
Yeah, for sure. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I first laid eyes on this place on the map in 2017, and we had really no idea what it was other than, looking at the topography and the landscape from a map. And then we first came there in 2018 from the Goat Creek trailhead, and if you've been there and if you've hiked out that, there's this crazy geographic formation. It's like at the right time of the year, it's basically a 200-yard long cascading waterfall, right? Like it's this crazy landscape that you can ride in. And when we came there, the road was barely open. You could barely squeeze a car through on the 26. The horse camp was completely overgrown. The trail system had hundreds of down logs with miles of overgrown brush. And we spent, our organization has spent about 10,000 volunteer hours to get this place back up and running. 2 summers, countless weekends there. Pair that with all the progressive trail work we've done with, horse and hike, which typically those groups don't get together. That experience together it has created lifelong memories for both me and our organization. Is a huge project we poured a ton of sweat equity into, and something that you talk to anyone from any of these groups that we're all super proud of it still. Lifelong memories, and not to mention, this is arguably the best place to ride your mountain bike in the Pacific Northwest. I'll argue it is. The scenery, the geography, the solitude you get are unmatched. And we've seen an exponential uptick in the amount of users out here. And I think it would disappoint a bunch of people who've found a new love for a new area. And then for our guide and outfitter business, it would effectively shut that down. The Green River Horse Camp is our base camp, and it's an amazing base camp. And from what I'm told, either the road is going to be shut down, or at a minimum, it's going to be 24-hour mining noise, and that's not really what we're looking for out there either. So, yeah, from trail work to the riding relationships to the friendships I've created out here, I know for me it's near and dear to my heart. But I can tell you right now, mountain bikers, this is on our radar, and it's a place that we all love to ride at. So, yeah.
Sure. What about you, Ben?
So for the Native Fish Society and myself as an individual, and really anyone concerned with wild fish or conserving biodiversity on our planet, the Green River is a really special place and unique in that it's home to a self-sustaining population of native wild steelhead and supports species of other native fish as well. So under Washington's statewide steelhead management plan, Lucy mentioned it earlier, it is in fact designated as a wild steelhead gene bank river. So it's a sanctuary for the wild fish that live there, which makes it special. And it's also part of a broader conservation strategy to help preserve that unique genetic composition of that population, to help support the long-term survival of the species as a whole. And Washington steelhead are really in peril. Some runs are listed under the Endangered Species Act, and many are really just a whisper away from becoming listed. And if this mine were to come in, it's really likely that run of Green River wild steelhead would join that list of fish that are listed under the ESA. There's some really serious threats associated with mining. They pose a really clear and present danger, for the steelhead. It would compromise their ability, to thrive within this designated sanctuary, and have a real possibility of entirely extirpating them from the river. And so that would be, definitely a great loss unto itself, but have some really serious negative implications for the long-term survival of the species as a whole. So for wild steelhead, the stakes couldn't be any higher. And as the state fish of Washington, steelhead are a really important and iconic species. In many ways, I think they kind of have come to symbolize the beauty and, the spirit of our region. And they're really special. And I think of, mining and this, hunt to uncover buried treasure, it just strikes me as so silly. And I would argue that, we already have a much richer treasure that's living and swimming and is wild and free in the Green River right now.
That's a great analogy. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. So, Lucy, you talked a little bit about how far-reaching some of these impacts could be with this mine. How could this mine impact drinking water in the area in Southwest Washington? And what's the importance of this area on drinking water for the local communities?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as Ben just said, the water in the Green River, if you bring a mine in, that's going to impact the habitat for the survival of fish. So if you think about that as humans drinking that water, that has really bad consequences as well. So the mining site is proposed right by the Green River. One of the drill pads is within half a mile or even closer of the Green River. And so when you think of the impacts of just even prospecting that can seep into the Green River, and that connects up to the Toutle River, down into the Cowlitz. The Cowlitz water supply is drinking water to thousands of residents of Southwest Washington. But we've actually tracked it, and you can see that sediment and toxic waste from the mine could go all the way down into the Columbia as well. And then you're talking about Vancouver, Portland as well. And that's just tracking it for prospecting. When you think of the grand scale of a mine, and like they talked about in the video, if a toxic tailing pond breaches, you're talking about pollution hitting so many different watersheds of drinking water. It could be absolutely disastrous, and definitely something that we do not want to happen. Another portion of that is groundwater had to be looked at when Ascot, the mining company, applied for their permits, and they found that the groundwater would be impacted, and groundwater acts like a conduit into a river. And so we know that the groundwater would not be free from toxins. So we have confidence it would go straight into the Green River. Yeah.
That's pretty widespread and much more far-reaching than just the local communities in this area. It's quite impactful. So yeah, elaborating on that a little bit more, Ben, with the potential impacts on drinking water that Lucy mentioned, can you talk about some of the potential effects on the fish and the habitat specifically of the Green River?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, especially keeping with, say, it as a wild steelhead gene bank river, these fish are incredibly tenacious and resilient creatures, but they really do need their habitat to be intact in order for them to continue to survive. And so these habitat needs are clean, cold, well-oxygenated water with access to, the habitat that they can successfully spawn and rear. So, the threats of this mining activity, any amount of resource extraction, but certainly mining would add, pollution and degrade the water quality. But it also contributes to sedimentation of the river. And so in order to successfully spawn, these fish need access to the right type of substrate in the river, the right type of gravel for which they can build their redds, their nests, to deposit their eggs in. And as sediment accumulates in the river, or especially in the case of some type of catastrophe, that gravel and that substrate can become inundated with sediment, and therefore that spawning habitat is essentially removed. If you have existing redds or nests and the sediment accumulates, that can smother and essentially kill those eggs in the gravel before they even have a chance to emerge. So then you've lost that next generation of fish. And then in addition, pollution and sedimentation in the stream, it affects the entire aquatic ecosystem. So the benthic macroinvertebrates, right, these aquatic insects that the juvenile fish need as an important food source for them to grow strong and prepare for this epic outbound migration that they're going to take to go out and do their thing. That can't happen if this pollution is happening in the stream and there's all this, accumulation of sediment. And so, it has some very serious implications. And as Lucy mentioned, it's not just limited to the Green River itself, but as a connected watershed, anything that's happening there in the Green River is also going to affect that same important habitat in the Toutle River and Cowlitz River and everything downstream. So some really, really serious implications in terms of habitat for fish.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, looking at these environmental impacts are super important, but I think it's equally as important to realize how much more this area provides too, more than just habitat for the species and the drinking water. And some of these environmental reasons that it makes it so amazing is what makes people love the recreational opportunities that it provides. So Nick, can you talk about some of these opportunities, especially biking that can be accessed from the trailheads here, and a bit about what this area that we saw in the movie too, the Common Grounds, what this area provides for your organization?
For sure, and thank goodness for Cascade Forest and Native Fish Society, because I love hearing this and learning about these things, and super appreciative you guys are able to share that with us. Yeah, I mean, for us, it's about mind and body, right? Like mountain biking is a fun recreational activity, but it's a lifestyle, and it's an amazing flow state, right? We all get our flow state in different ways, but for us, it's through mountain biking, and it's that ability to escape, the conscious thought into unconscious thought, right? And anytime we can do that is almost pure living, right? So for us, it provides solitude and a depth of nature that is rarely found outside of wilderness. And for mountain bikers, this is as close as we get to wilderness, and it's a place that we really want to protect. The vantage point that you get from this network is like no other. You're smack in the middle of volcano country with huge panoramic views of Helens and Adams and Rainier and Mount Hood. And at certain times you get them all at one time, right? That's super unique. Yeah, there's huge old growth stands as you head down the 213 on the Green River. You look at these trees that have so much history, thousands of years in some of these trees. And you can't help but think what they've seen in their lifetime, and that you're sharing this small sliver of time with them. And to be in the presence of these giants is that connection to nature that's hard to explain, but easy to feel. There isn't any other place that offers this scenery that I've found in the Northwest. And for us mountain bikers, it's not often that you get trails that summit mountains and that traverse ridge lines, and the remnants of that blast have almost created an alpine setting. So when you get on these ridge lines and on these mountaintops, you get these crazy views that we just don't normally get as mountain bikers. So I think the beauty of the place, the geography, the topography, the lakes, the mountains, the trees, that experience, we get to cover some ground in a day, and the entire loop Goat Mountain, Vance, and Tumwater is 33 miles with about 9,000 feet of climbing. And we can, it's not, it's a painful day, but it's something you can cover in a day. And it's a really cool experience on the ground with a bike. So yeah, when we heard this was going down, we're on board to help preserve this place.
That sounds like an awesome trip. Yeah. Recreation and conservation really come together in this place, and they're also interdependent, which makes it so cool, and how we can all appreciate what everybody else is bringing to the table. It's a cool thing to see. So beyond those two things, recreation, conservation, there are a lot of people and economies that depend on this area. Can each of you speak to how mining could have negative economic implications from your perspective or your organization's perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the biggest kind of selling points for mining companies when they come in is it's going to bring jobs and boost the economy. But what we know of this incredible area is that tourism and recreation is a huge factor for this economy. Specifically, Lewis County, where the mining site is proposed, in 2019, $250 million accounted for of the whole GDP of that county was tourism and recreation. It provides thousands of jobs. Of the 3 local towns to the mine site, Glenoma, Morton, and Packwood, 60% of those jobs are in tourism and recreation. And so we know that the tourism and recreation supports this county, supports Washington greatly, and a mine would greatly impact that, not just what it would do to this incredible landscape and the opportunities here, but it would economically hurt the county as well.
Definitely sounds like it.
Yeah, I think for us, we have a small business here, and it would directly affect that. I mean, if we're not able to, I mean, even if we're able to ride there, you've seen the mining. Hopefully, people have seen the proposed area of where the mine will be. Which, if you haven't seen it, Cascade Forest website has a great map on there that shows that. But yeah, I mean, it affects a lot of small business, and the unfortunate part about recreation is it's got so many fingers, right? And extraction is one check to one organization, and we've seen this is an area that is that at one point was a major logging town. I think there's still a mill there, but you see how we're transitioning from an extraction type economy to a recreation economy. And yeah, Lucy's right. It's not as easily measurable as a single mine or forest extraction. But for us, it definitely would affect our business. If we can't ride there, it affects people's jobs. Yeah, and I think that matters. For us, we are a small business, but those jobs matter, and I can't imagine this mine comes even close to what rec provides in that area. So yeah, for us, it directly affects our guide and outfitter business, and it would be a blow to us for sure.
Yeah, as far as having wild steelhead fisheries available, it's something that's becoming really increasingly rare. And of course, pandemic notwithstanding, people travel from all over the country and all over the world, to Washington for the opportunity to have an encounter with one of these really incredible special fish. So as far as being a part of outdoor recreation in general, losing a place like the Green River, it's one less opportunity in the state for people to participate and experience these special and unique recreational opportunities that the region has to offer. And drawing that lens out a little further too, and thinking about it from the important role that the Green River plays in terms of its role as a wild steelhead gene bank river, the ramifications of say losing that river to a mine have some really big negative impacts for the recreational fishing industry on a region-wide scale. So it's certainly not just the folks who want to participate in it, but for the individuals and the communities whose livelihoods depend on it. And for people to continue to have the opportunity to, get build that connection to nature and have those experiences. And as Nick was really describing earlier, entering that flow state and getting into it, angling and fishing for wild steelhead can really provide that. And I think if you lose that opportunity, you're losing, both people participating in it, and that's an important, revenue stream for the agencies and through excise taxes that go into, the equipment. But you're also losing people who are connected to something and who are able to advocate for it and stand up and share why it's important. So if you lose that and people who care about it, there's not people like us here tonight who want to get together and come together around something. So, yeah, some really important stuff there.
For sure. Well, thanks for you all for sharing, why this place is important to you and your organizations and what you guys really appreciate and how everybody's interconnected to it in one way or another. And I think it's really important to realize the beauty of the place and then why we really want to protect it and fully understand the threat that is coming in. And so CFC has been trying to prevent a mine here for about 15 years and through legal opposition. So Lucy, could you tell us and update us briefly on what the status of our current Cascade Forest Conservancy lawsuit is?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as Molly mentioned, it's been a 15-year slog. About 10 of those years have been spent in litigation, specifically 3 different lawsuits. This current one is our 3rd. A pretty exciting time for us at CFC, but also an urgent one. We got a ruling in our lawsuit just over a week ago. There were 6 claims in this lawsuit, and we won 2 of them and 2 big claims. And I'll just quickly explain what those claims were. So the first was that the agencies, which is the Forest Service and the BLM, didn't take a hard look at the impacts that a mine would have to this place. So distilling that, all of these things that we've just talked about, the recreation, the Green River, impacts to fish, impacts to those trails that Nick talks about, all of those things were not considered by the agency. And so the judge ruled that the agency hadn't adequately looked at those things when deciding to issue the permits. And then the second claim that we won as well speaks to the drinking water portion. So as I mentioned before, even just prospecting is going to have serious impacts to groundwater. And that groundwater is a conduit into the Green River and then onto the Toutle River and the Cowlitz and down into the Columbia. And so the judge found the agencies hadn't done enough analysis to decide whether there wouldn't be impacts to groundwater, because there definitely would be. The downsides of that opinion were we did lose some pretty important claims. And one of them was that the specific location of the drill pads proposed for this mine sit on Lands and Water Conservation Fund Act lands. And that is a statute from Congress that says that lands purchased under this statute by agencies, specifically the Forest Service here, have to be for recreation and conservation. So our argument was, a mine interferes with the primary purpose of what these lands were purchased for. And unfortunately, we lost this claim this time around. So that's where I speak to the urgency. We have good rulings so far. We're taking it as a win. Anytime a judge says the agencies have violated federal environmental law, that's definitely a win. But the urgent portion is we don't know if those permits are going to be thrown out, and we hope that they do, and that buys us more time. But it speaks to urgency and also another kind of route that we're probably going to be taking, which I'll speak about in a little bit.
Well, I think now is actually the perfect time to talk about it. I mean, there is another way that we can go about preventing this mine. So a mineral withdrawal.
Yes, absolutely. So speaking about the longevity of being in litigation for 15 years, we know that lawsuits are eventually just not going to stop this. And we're kind of at that pivot point here. We've lost a couple of claims and won a couple of claims, so it could really go either way. And so we know that we need a permanent way of protecting this landscape. So that secondary route is a mineral withdrawal. There are 2 different kinds of mineral withdrawals. There's an administrative mineral withdrawal and a legislative mineral withdrawal. So an administrative goes straight through the agencies up to the Department of the Interior or the Department of Agriculture, depending on which lands the lands in question sit on. Ours is a little bit of an interesting one. Our lands are owned by the Forest Service, but the Bureau of Land Management has a 50% ownership in those mineral rights. So it's a little bit wonky there. The second route, which is probably the route that we are going, or going so far, is a legislative mineral withdrawal. So this is an act of Congress that would remove those lands from mineral extraction. So that prevents new mining claims and acting upon any unpatented mining claims. This does not do anything to any other existing uses. It still protects mountain bike trails. It still protects horseback riding. It still protects it protects all of these incredible uses in this area that we've talked about. It just prevents them from being mined and extracted from minerals.
Which would be forever changing this landscape. And yeah, I think that's our end goal and what we all want to protect. So I have one last question for you all before we start our question and answer period of the evening. And if you guys have any questions for these panelists, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll try to come to some of those. But for each of you, if there was one final takeaway that our audience had to leave with this evening, what would be that one thing that you want them to know?
Yeah, well, I mean, a mineral withdrawal will be absolutely changing for this landscape and protecting it. And it's something that we can't do without all of you getting involved. And so as constituents of this area, we'd love you to start reaching out to your Congress, to your senators, to your representatives. We're gonna start having a letter writing party, essentially, or a letter writing workshop, where we help people write their letters to their congressional representatives and tell them why they think a mine in this incredible place is a terrible idea.
My one takeaway is listen to Lucy for sure. And this is something that definitely I'm learning and our community is learning from how they engage with our elected representatives. But yeah, one, definitely, if you haven't been here, go there. Go here this summer and recreate. It's mind blowing. And secondly, get involved. And I know how many of us have families and obligations, but either a handwritten letter or a typed letter with your signature on it with a heartfelt message is going to go a long way. Even a phone call, from what I understand, if you call your senator or congressperson, they have to get back to you. Give them a phone call if a letter's too much, and get involved as much as you can.
Yeah, and I would just really sort of drive home some of the stuff we've been talking about in terms of our native fish and what's really at stake here, and just how imperiled these species are, and of all the threats and challenges that face them, to have a place like the Green River where they're able to still do their thing and be there doing that is something really special and incredible and unique. And the idea of risking that for to see if maybe there might be some gold or silver. Like I said, we have the truest treasure already living and swimming wild and free in this river. And so to risk sacrificing that is just such a danger. And really, in the times we're in, we're talking about, not just losing, one run of fish, but, endangered species and preserving, the biodiversity of our planet. And this is a place that we can do that right here in our region by helping protect the Green River. So really, really important place. And I think, we've talked about it a bit, but it's a really special place in that we've been able to identify this intersection between these different groups. And I guess I would encourage all of us to, keep our eyes open for places and opportunities to identify these types of intersections where we can come together and bring different, user groups and different types of people together. Successful conservation efforts don't happen in a vacuum. As Lucy was saying, it's really complex, and all of us are stakeholders, and we all have an important voice. And whether you want to cast a line or hit the trail or forest bathe with some old growth or just drink some safe, clean water. It's important. And I think we can, reach a wider audience, but also, gain greater insights and important perspectives in instances like this where there's these intersections.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely important to figure out how to protect all this and how everything kind of comes together and what you can do to get involved in these areas that you really care about and interface with. Lucy, there's a question here from the audience that says, will you be sending out a standard letter format that can be adapted and sent out by all those concerned, along with a list of representatives to contact and their contact information? So maybe you could talk a little bit about how someone could go about doing that and how CFC plans to support those efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we will be. As I mentioned before, we're going to start a letter writing kind of workshop so that we can have personal letters from people. But we'll also be having a standard sign-on as well. We haven't set that up yet because we're still waiting for what this final decision will be from our lawsuit. And that will depend on whether those permits are vacated and thrown out and we get a little bit more time, or whether, unfortunately, the permits go ahead and we're in a very urgent rush to prevent drilling from happening. So we will definitely be doing both those things, aiding people, helping them write letters. I know it can be super nerve-wracking and just you don't really know what to write letters to congressional representatives. So we want to help as much with that. And we'll have that template sign on as well, and a list of representatives and phone numbers. Like Nick said, getting on the phone too is great. That's an awesome way of doing it as well.
Awesome. Another question, I think this one would be directed to you too, Lucy. Is there a way that the public can find more in-depth information and specific information about the plans for the mine itself?
Yeah, so the agencies that oversee this are the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management. So all of the proposed, or what we have of the proposed prospecting is embedded on those agency websites. But you are always welcome to reach out, shoot us an email, and we will send you more information than you could ever want about this as well.
Awesome. So here's an interesting one, and I don't know if there's a straightforward answer to this, but I think it's worth a discussion. It's from Gabe. A common pushback when I hear when talking about the mine is, well, you're holding a phone full of these minerals, and how can you be anti-mine? Is that hypocritical? And what's the best way to take that into consideration with these discussions that we're having in protecting this place?
Well, I can jump in with a quick one there. So what's super interesting about this place is this company did prospect just over a decade ago and didn't really find anything, or didn't release that they found anything. And so we're not certain that there are minerals there in the first place. And so that's one of our other huge concerns, is you're going to go in and drill in this incredible landscape, and it might be for naught that there aren't the minerals there. And then what Ben talked about, this way up between minerals and these natural treasures that we have, and those natural treasures are dwindling by the minute. And so that would be kind of how I pose it, is how can you put a price on either?
Yeah, Ben or Nick, do you want to add to that one? We can move on to the next. Here's one from Tyler. What was the rationale given for the ruling against the claim regarding the way the land was purposed?
Yeah, I think I know what that's saying.
Okay,
but
go for it.
Nick, you went off mute, so it also looks like.
No, I think, yeah, he was wondering, you guys mentioned that the land was designated for conservation and for recreation. How are they slipping past the law, essentially, I think is what Tyler's asked.
Totally. So with a statute like the Lands and Water Conservation Fund Act, there is a standard of which a different use would be compared to be interfering with that. And so the specific standard for this statute is, would this new use interfere with? And the judge said that the level of prospecting and drilling did not interfere with recreation and conservation. This is pretty interesting because one of the reasons we won our later claim was because the drilling would interfere with recreation. So a little bit of a puzzler for us, but we'll pursue that going forward as this happens.
Thanks for that clarification there. Yeah. There's a few questions about interactions with the tribes on this front. And so Hannah and Cherie, it looks like, are interested and curious if anyone has been in contact with the tribal members and representatives, and if there are plans to do so, and how this might affect tribal lands.
I'm happy to take this one as well. Yeah, we are in close communication with the Cowlitz and the Yakima tribes, who are both the tribes impacted, that those are their lands. They're extremely supportive with us with both the lawsuit and this campaign going forward, and they are very much in the mix with this.
Great, thanks for that. And I'm just scrolling to try to find another question here. From Mike here. Is there a way to consider the impacts to the viewshed of the adjacent national monument to have U.S. Forest Service or BLM put that into their NEPA analysis on the viability of this project? Lucy, I have a feeling this one might go back to you too.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to answer that. I think it would go to the existing sightline guidelines within the national monument. That's not something that was raised in our lawsuit. And I'll be completely honest and say, this lawsuit's taken a long time. I actually was not on staff when this was filed. But I imagine if there was an option for that, we would have definitely gone for it. There's different standards for that. And if it wasn't strong enough, then that's why it wasn't put forward as one of our 6 claims.
Great. Right. I'm looking to see if there's some other questions coming in here. Any for Ben and Nick would be great too, so we don't make Lucy do all the talking. Here's one. What mining company are you fighting on this, and what are the expected outputs from the mine? And so I think we covered that a little bit earlier, but I don't think it hurts to reiterate it again. Lucy, if you want to take this one too, or I can, it's up to you.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, what's mining company are you fighting on this one, and what are the expected outputs from the mine? Is it?
Yeah, it's Ascot Resources, so they're a Canadian mining company. So that's where we're like, you know, the pitch is that it will bring jobs, but we're pretty sure these might be Canadian jobs and not US jobs. And then it's gold and copper is the potential output from here, from this deposit, but we don't know if any of it exists right now.
So here's another good one. Oh, yeah, Nick.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was looking at our chat, and Dylan asked a question, and I've talked to some locals too, but there's a long history of mining here, right? At least I know there's existing mine shafts that you can find. There's one off the green. There's a couple out there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what is the history with the mining here? And do you know when the last time minerals were actually extracted from here?
I think it's been a fair few years. The mining claims have switched hands a number of times. They were Duval for a long time. So I think we're looking back middle of the century, if not further back than that, before any actual mining. Well, not before the last time any actual mining. It's been a while.
And same copper and gold?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what advice would you give new fishers or bikers wanting to explore this area of the best way to get out there and enjoy it or access it? How does one do that on the fishing front or the biking front?
For fishing, it's about just getting out there and exploring. I think that's really one of the joys of, any type of outdoor recreation. But for me personally, and many other fellow anglers, that's the joy is, to go out and find some solitude and explore. And maybe you find fish, maybe you don't, but you're exploring the outdoors and connecting with it. So I would say just getting out there and checking it out and trying. And then of course, finding, at your local fly shop or getting a hold of a fishing guide and connecting with them, and either, going with a guide, which I'm not sure how much of that actually goes down on the Green River itself, but just in general. But definitely just kind of what Nick was talking about earlier too, is just be there and experience it.
Yeah, we a shameless plug, but we do take people on tours out there, and we have we do anything from like bring a chef out, and we'll do multiple days out there, to single day rides that are affordable, that provide some of the logistical some of the logistics that you need if you don't want to climb 9,000 feet in a day, or 5,000 feet in a day for that matter. But yeah, I mean, hot tip, go to Green River Horse Camp this summer. From there, that's a really amazing network. And, from there, you've got access to the entire Goat Mountain, Vanson, Tumwater zone, which is a 33-mile network that you can kind of slice up a couple different ways. But it also connects to Strawberry Mountain, and Strawberry Mountain is the opposing ridge line and kind of perpendicular to Goat Mountain, which is an amazing place as well. The 213 trail, if you look on the map, just connects right into it. So you've got 3 or 4 days of riding or hiking there. I know my friend Beth Dayton, she did our initial scouting there, and she did a 4-day hike there. So I think there's definitely a solid 4 days of backpacking in there. And then it's nestled right close to the Mount Margaret backcountry too. And if you haven't been there, that's the opposing ridge line to the monument, to Mount St. Helens, and a spectacular landscape that you could see was absolutely hammered by the volcano, but has left what today is a wild landscape that if you haven't seen it, you have to go there. So I think go camp at the Green River Horse Camp, and be there for 4 days and go explore, grab a map, and you can give us a call anytime, and we'll run you through best direction to ride it, or hike it, or run it, or whatever else you want to do there. So
sweet, that's good advice. There's Mike mentioned here, is there any consideration of running some public riding events out there to raise awareness and combining these rides and hikes with advocacy at the trailhead? I'm like, that's a good idea, Mike. I think we might have to talk about partnering up maybe to do that in non-COVID times, so we can educate people and let people know what's going on in this area that they're experiencing and maybe not aware of. So good suggestion there. So a question from Sean, adding on to a previous question: would a decrease or loss in the steelhead population have cascading effects into the rest of the food chain in the area?
Absolutely. I mean, salmon and steelhead are keystone species in the habitat, so they very much, their life cycle that I'm sure many of us are familiar with is, they are spawned and reared in these freshwater environments, and then they head out to the ocean and will spend 1 to 4 or more years out there, really feasting on the bounty of the ocean. And upon returning to their natal streams to complete their life cycle, yeah, they will in fact be returning, bringing all those nutrients and that bounty of the ocean back to that freshwater environment. So absolutely, losing the steelhead or the other species of salmonids that live in this river would have a very serious impact to the entire ecosystem and all the other aquatic organisms and other mammal species, and yeah, the entire food chain would definitely be disrupted in this area.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ben. Definitely. Switching back to economics, there's a question talking about looking at the economics for the area, and if we could restate if we've measured economic impact or traffic shifts since Trans-Cascadia cleared trails and opened up the area to biking and riding. And I know CFC has done a little bit of economic analysis, not looking at that directly, since we haven't had a chance to do that in before and after to look at that. But Nick, maybe you have some information about that.
You know, that's the thing that we in recreation struggle with to justify to our land managers. They, you know, they're measured by their extraction. They have a certain amount of wood they have to cut in a year. And I'm not sure how minerals, this is our first mine, but logging is definitely something we constantly battle in terms of, like, you know, if it's rerouting a new trail or putting in a new trail, that requires NEPA process as well. But it's low on the totem pole, for lack of better terms, as far as importance. So it's something we struggle with, that we know when people come to town, they spend their money in these small towns that are still recovering from logging, and it's just hard to measure. You know, we know the studies have been done, but it's one of those things that has so many little tentacles that you can't quite, it's hard to nail it down. Plus, you know, we're just limited in our resources to track something like that. So I do think we know that it's there. It's just really hard for us to, it's not a direct check like tree extraction or mineral extraction, which is a check to the Forest Service. They do get a percentage of our gross annually, but they don't get a percentage of the money spent within the local economy. So it's just a lot less and has less impact for them. Plus, I think it's what we need to try to get our land managers to do, which is have a stake in the local economy. The small business there is important, and they currently don't have, there's no incentive. I know that there is personal incentive, and I don't want to paint the picture that our land managers don't care, because I know a lot of them do. It's just they're not, their job is not measured based on local economic activity or increased activity. So it's definitely one of those puzzle pieces that we all need to try to figure out. I think the best thing we can do is have any local business that we've impacted write letters and say how important recreation is to the community. And that's what I see as the biggest opportunity, is like, hey, connecting with these local businesses, letting them know how important their business is to us, and that we want to drive as many people in their doors as possible. And if they write letters saying how important recreation is, I think that'll have a big impact too.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Nick, I think that that's a great way to kind of wrap up this evening. And I just want to thank you all for joining us tonight and sharing things from your perspective, and sharing with everybody who joined us today and that will watch this later, help educating them on the ways that they can appreciate this place, why it's important, how they can access it, and then what they can do to protect it. And so what I'd ask all of the people who joined us today is follow us, CFC, Trans-Cascadia, Native Fish Society, everyone on Facebook and Instagram. And so you can stay in touch on how we can engage with each other. So thank you all so much, and have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody. Take care. Good to see you guys.
Thanks all.